This is the story of early 1900. Even more than a century ago, at that time Dr. Babinski was sitting in his office, and to him a patient of paraparesis came. And at that time there was no imaging modalities to localize whether the problem is in the spinal cord or whether it is in cortex or wherever. There was not much advanced diagnostic techniques. So what he did, that he stroked the plantar aspect of the foot with a key. So let's imagine this is the plantar aspect of the foot of the patient, and this is the big toe and these are the small toes. So what did he do, that he stroked like this. So he stroked, he gave nociceptive stimulus in the S1 dermatome, and what he observed, that there was extension of the big toe and fanning of other toes. So it was surprising because he stimulated S1 dermatome, but L5 myotome contracted. L4, L5 is supplied, extensors of the two is extensor hallucis are supplied by L4, L5. So he thought that, oh, I gave a stimulus to S1 root and L4, L5 contracted, and there was fanning. So these are not done by S1 root, these are done by L4, L5. So he thought that it is surprising. So he called his assistant and he repeated the same maneuver in him. But at that time what happened, that there was flexion of the big toe, and anything did not happen in these other small toes. So he thought that, oh, I can understand this because I give stimulus to the S1 root and S1 root motor root contracted, and there was flexion of this big toe because the flexor hallucis longus is supplied by S1 motor root. So this is the explainable thing, but I did not understand why this L4, L5 nerve got stimulated, because this extensor hallucis longus are supplied by the deep peroneal nerve. So how did it occur? So he looked at physiology literature, and what he found, that, so let's discuss that physiology in this video. So I told you that when there is a stimulation in this S1 dermatome, what happens, that this nociception stimulus is carried by S1 fibers. Through tibial nerve it goes to sciatic nerve, and through sciatic nerve it goes to a spinal cord. So let's imagine this is the cross section of a spinal cord. This is the cross section of a spinal cord. This is the posterior horn, this is the anterior horn, and this is at S1 level. And let's imagine this is at L5 level, this is at L4 level. Okay, so this is at S1 level. So this nociceptive stimulus came here, this impulse electricity came here, and this normally what happens, that through this is the reflex pathway, so monosynaptic reflex. So what happens, that this impulse goes to the S1 root, and through this it supplies to the flexor hallucis longus, and flexion of two occurs. But let's suppose if there is dysfunction or if there is any problem in the corticospinal tract. So corticospinal tract travels from the motor cortex, primary motor cortex and supplementary motor cortex through corona radiata, and then it comes through crosses at medulla, and then comes in the spinal cord in the anterior part of the spinal cord. So this corticospinal tract travels in the anterior part of the spinal cord. So if there is any problem from the motor cortex till this S1 root, what happens, that either due to any vascular accident or any demyelination or degeneration, whatever may be type of injury pathology, what happens, that if there is dysfunction of this upper motor neuron tract, what happens, that Normally this corticospinal tract, what does it do is that it prevents the spread of these impulses from S1 to L4, L5 and above. So since this impulse is coming in the S1 route, the impulse does not know this is the S1 boundary, so I should don't go upward, so impulse will spread upward. Impulse can spread any direction because the electricity is coming here like this, so it can go like this can go there like this, it can go anywhere. It does not understand, electricity does not understand. If you put your finger in the power socket, so it won't understand this is the electrical equipment or your finger, it will give your energy. So this energy is going this direction, it can go upward direction as well. So normally this corticospinal tract, what does this do is that this prevents the spread of these electrical impulses from this to upwards, so it does not let it flow upward. So that's why it flow like this, and normally flexion of the two occur. But if there is dysfunction of this corticospinal tract, so what happens that this electrical impulses travels upwards, so it travels upwards, L2 goes L4, L5. So what happens that L4, L5, what does this supply deep peroneal nerve, and deep peroneal nerve what does that it flexes the two upward, and there is fanning of the toes, other toes. So this information from S1 spread to L4, L5, so you got the extensor response in the two. But let's suppose the patient is comatose or patient has extensive dysfunction of the corticospinal tract, so it only not spreads to L4, L5, but it can even go to L2, L3 like that, so even travels upwards. So what happens that you can also see if there is any such large dysfunction of this corticospinal tract, you can see flexion of the knee and flexion of the thigh, because it also spread to the other motor nerve fibers. That's why other motor nerve fibers also contracted. That's why you can see contraction of iliotibial tract, flexion of the thigh, flexion of the knees,